Chapter 7. Court of the Crimson King. It is not yet midnight on this wind-chilled street near Seacliff in San Francisco, but the Satanists are gathering in anticipation of their Friday night revels. They've come to this infamous black Victorian house to renew their dedication to Satan, to ask that he favor them in their desires, and free them for fleshly indulgence. Gathering in the antechamber, they seem like any group of amiable, successful people you might find chatting at a cocktail party. Most of the men are dressed in dark suits, though some are less conservative, wearing brighter shirts, perhaps leather jackets or pants. The women are more provocative. They wear bright colors, spiked heels, heavy makeup, short skirts or sheer dresses clinging tightly to outline their ample curves. More than one woman has a necklace peeking from between her partially exposed breasts. Many of the men are wearing the same necklace over their shirts. They stand in groups of 2 or 4, speaking of the latest stock trends, astrology, old cars, and telling tales of modern-day vampires. Finally, a tall, black-robed figure enters and announces the ceremony is about to begin. Cigarettes are extinguished, and the 24 men and women assemble quietly behind the figure to be escorted into the ritual chamber. Not a word is whispered as the congregation moves solemnly into their darkened chapel. Eyes begin to adjust to the dimness, the only illumination filtering through from the antechamber. The air is a few degrees colder in here, the atmosphere thicker. As soon as the congregants take their seats, the door slams shut behind them, leaving them in pitch-black silence. Almost immediately, the silence is shattered by the booming chords of an organ. The ear picks up strains of old church hymns and Wagnerian themes blended with sound effects from old horror movies. The group listens in darkness for a full 5 minutes or more, the sound clearing their minds for what is to come. The music ends in a thundering fanfare. After a beat, a gong sounds 3 times, and the lights are brought up just enough to see the celebrants now assembled at the front of the ritual chamber. The central figure is a large man, strong-looking, his steady eyes glittering as he peers at and through everyone in the room. His shaven head is fitted with a black cowl coming to a sharp point at his forehead, with horns made of bone on either side. The cowl extends to a floor-length cape lined with crimson satin lining. His presence is one of quiet but irresistible command. He is the High Priest, Anton Zander LaVey, the first man to ever found an above-ground organization dedicated to Satan and the delights of the flesh. Behind him, on the wall, is a large sigil of Baphomet, the symbol of Satanism adapted from the design used by the Knights Templar in the 14th century. An inverted pentagram containing a goat's head, surrounded by 5 Hebrew letters, one at each point of the pentagram. The letters spell out Leviathan, one of the crown princes of hell. The same symbol is on the necklaces of the assembled devil worshippers. Below this lies a curvaceous redhead, serving as the altar for tonight's services. She has draped herself across the large stone mantle over the fireplace, her flesh gleaming in the dim light. She bends her knee modestly, allowing the hair from her head to fall over the edge of the mantle. She, too, wears the symbol of Baphomet, almost hidden between her naked breasts. Tonight she is a living altar of flesh, evoking lust and making the blood burn. She becomes the point of concentration for all in the room, the carnal focus of the will of the Satanists. 2 men in black hoods stand ready at either side of the high priest, with another hooded assistant manning the gong to the right of the altar. A woman with long blonde hair flowing over her velvet robe stands near to the high priest, holding a sheathed sword, point downward, in front of her. The organist also wears a black hood as he begins to play the Hymn to Satan, a corruption of Bach's Jesu mein Freude. 2 naked female acolytes stand reverently near the altar. The ritual chamber itself is painted black, with a ceiling of blood red. Amber bulbs burn dimly in the sconces on the walls, giving the room an indistinct glow. A coffin stands upended in the corner, forming a looming hexagon shape, upon which a stuffed owl glowers down on the participants seated below. One of the female acolytes moves about the altar now, lighting the black candles in preparation. It is time for the ritual to begin. All eyes focus on the high priest. As the organist continues the Hymn to Satan, LaVey picks up a large brass bell, waves it over the altar to sanctify it, and slowly revolves counterclockwise before his followers, his cape billowing around his feet as he turns. He rings the bell 9 times, Satan's number, to clear the air, then returns the bell to its place on the mantle. Turning to his blonde assistant, he smoothly unsheathes the sword she has offered him. LaVey points it over the altar of flesh and somberly intones his evocation. In nomine de nostri Satanas Luciferi excelsi. The organist plays improvised rumblings to accent the high priest's words. In the name of Satan, ruler of the earth, king of the world, I command the forces of darkness to bestow their infernal power upon me. Open wide the gates of hell and come forth from the abyss and answer to your most unholy names. Satan, extending the sword to the south, Lord of the infernal regions. Lucifer, turning to the east, bringer of light and wisdom. Belial, turning to the north, king of the earth. Leviathan, turning to the west, ruler of the watery abyss. Come forth and greet your loyal brothers and sisters of the left-hand path. Shemham Foresh. The congregation shouts in response. Shemham Foresh. Hail Satan, chants the high priest. Hail Satan! Their defiant cries ring out. The gong is struck. One of the hooded assistants moves to the altar and hands LaVey the chalice of ecstasy. A silver goblet filled not with wine or even blood, but with LeVay's current favorite, bourbon whiskey. He takes the chalice, drinks deeply, and passes it among his assistants to enjoy with him, finally returning it to the altar. The two naked acolytes step forward. One holds a candle slightly above their heads. The other holds a large black book in front of the high priest and holds it for him as he thrusts the sword aloft and reads in a harsh, echoing voice. Hear me, dark ones. Appear among men and be driven back no longer. Come forth and creep into the great councils of those without, and stop the way of those who would detain us. Grant me the indulgences of which I speak. I have taken thy name as part of myself. I live as the beasts of the field, rejoicing in the fleshly life. I favor the just and curse the rotten. By all the gods of the pit, I command that these things of which I speak shall come to pass. Come forth and answer it to your names, and by manifesting my desires. Oh, hear the names. LeVay fiercely growls the infernal names. Gods and goddesses, once adored, revered, now debased and defiled, hated and feared by all but the Satanists. Loki, Balaam, Chort, Mammon, Shiva, Asmodeus, Shaitan, all considered evil by conventional religions. The congregants echo each name after LeVay. The organ music climbs to a crescendo, and again the gong is struck 3 times. Hail, Satan! The group shouts after their high priest. When the infernal names are concluded, LeVay recites a passage in the pre-biblical magician's language, Enochian. The syllables are hard, guttural, yet strangely compelling. Ol Sanuf, Valor, Vaor Rasaji, Gohu Iyad Balata, Ilana Uashua, Kelazad, Sobrazad al Rore, Ita, Nazo da Pesad, Girata Mael Paraji, Das Hoel Ko Ka Nata Ahoa, Zodi Mezad, Zodakare, Eka, Od, Zoda Maranu, Oda Kikale Ka, Zodoreshe, Lape, Zodi Zaredo, Noko Mada Hoatha He, Satan. LeVay steps toward his fellow Satanists, summoning them forth to speak their deepest desires before their dark lord. Each in his turn whispers his untold dreams and needs to LeVay. Help me do well in my new job. Make the man in the apartment across the hall fall madly in love with me. Let my wife return to me in wild passion. Destroy my competitor so I can get the contract I'm working on. Human drives and goals. No murky spirituality draped in hypocritical selflessness. The emphasis is on applying whatever power they feel their demons wield to help them gain worldly power for themselves. After each desire is repeated aloud by the high priest, shouts of "Hail, Satan!" are echoed by the congregants. The air is electrified with adrenal energy. As the goals are sent out to the ethers, and the ritual draws to a close. While the organist quietly plays triumphal strains in the background, LaVey opens his cape wide before the nude altar, his hands held up in the sign of the horns. 2 fingers upward to affirm the duality of nature, with the 3 middle fingers folded down in denial of the Holy Trinity. Forget ye not what was and is to be. Flesh without sin, world without end. He lowers his arms. All rise and give the sign of the horns. The members rise and thrust their left arms forward, returning the sign. After turning to the altar to pass a traditional sign of the flame over her, LaVey shouts 3 Hail Satans, with his congregation repeating each one. After each, the gong booms forth. The purifying bell is rung 9 times once more, as the organist plays the hymn of the Satanic Empire. When the music ends and the last ring of the bell fades to silence, LaVey pronounces, "So it is done." The Church of Satan was founded on the night of April 30th, 1966. Within a year and a half of its creation, the organization had been the center of 3 separate media sensations that splashed front-page headlines about Satan's church around the world. The first of these was the marriage of 2 of Anton's members on February 1st, 1967. John Raymond, a politically radical journalist, and Judith Case, New York socialite and daughter of a prominent attorney, asked Anton to perform the wedding ceremony, blessing their union in Satan's name. It was not the first satanic wedding ceremony LaVey had performed. That distinction fell to another of Anton's flock, Forrest Satterfield. But due to the good family status of Raymond and Miss Case, word got out. On the day of the ceremony, newspapers from California to Europe had more reporters and photographers than any event since the opening of the Golden Gate Bridge, crowding the Black House to witness this supreme blasphemy. There was such a mob that police had to cordon off the area. Photographer Joe Rosenthal, who took the immortal shot of soldiers raising the American flag on Iwo Jima in World War II, was assigned by the San Francisco Chronicle. The Los Angeles Times, among other prominent newspapers, devoted 4 columns at the top of their front page to one of Rosenthal's pictures of the wedding. Most of the accompanying stories lingered on the naked female altar, the array of personalities present, and Tagar, the Nubian lion, roaring from somewhere further inside the house. The press was delighted. They dubbed Anton the Black Pope and clamored for interviews with him. Anton rose to the occasion, making the most of the tricks of dramatic presentation, costuming, props, and stage magic he had learned on carnival and circus lots. While many of the early magazine articles were published in men's magazines because of the nude girls, mainstream magazines became interested as Satanism gained popularity. Eventually, all the major magazines were doing in-depth cover stories on the rising tide of Satanism led by LaVey. The rituals for the first year were largely intended as cathartic blasphemies against Christianity. The elements were consistent with the reports of satanic worship from the famous writings of diabolists, such as the description in Joris Karl Huysmans' La Bosse. Some of the people attending their first honest to Satan Black Mass would say their Hail Marys, cross themselves quickly, and rush out of the ritual chamber to scratch their names off the registration book at the door. In Anton's church, all the satanic fantasies became realities. It was during this public prankish period that Anton held his Topless Witches Review at a San Francisco night spot in North Beach. One of the girls he hired to emerge menacingly from her coffin as a vampire was Susan Atkins. Atkins was not yet involved with Charles Manson, and it would be 2 years until she committed the murders in Sharon Tate's Benedict Canyon home, licking the blood from her fingers after the deed. But in her post-conversion expose, Child of Satan, Child of God, Atkins indicts LaVey as the catalyst for her downfall. Anton remembers her as just another Hate Street burnout, perhaps a bit more drug-befuddled than some. She'd beg off rehearsals, saying she had a fever of 108 degrees. But in the end, she made a fine vampire. We utilized a formula of 9 parts social respectability to 1 part outrage, says LaVey. We established a church of Satan, something that would smash all concepts of what a church was supposed to be. This was a temple of indulgence instead of temples of abstinence that had been built up until then. We didn't want it to be an unforgiving, unwelcoming place, but a place where you could go to have fun. After a while, Anton got tired of simply mocking Christianity and decided to work up rituals which would be blasphemously positive and exciting. I realized there was a whole gray area between psychology and religion that had been largely untapped, said LaVey. He saw the potential for group ritual used as a powerful combination of psychodrama and psychic direction. Instead of just throwing off the bioelectrical energy and releasing it to be dissipated in the surrounding ethers, that energy could be structured, shaped, and directed to accomplish a specific goal. He didn't want to do parlor tricks, but real applied magic. The formalized curse, for example, is more than an exorcism of pent-up emotion. It is a true destruction ritual with all reserve tossed aside to generate wild emotion and focus it on the object of contempt or anger. That way, the person who caused the pain is made to suffer rather than the one who harbors the feelings. The destruction is turned back on the one who deserves it. LaVey saw his ritual technique as much more powerful than the psychics who claims to all kinds of magical powers. The amount of energy needed to levitate a teacup, thought LaVey, would be sufficient force to place an idea in the heads of people halfway across the earth and motivate them in accordance with your will. LaVey promised no miracles, and perhaps that is what most inspired people to listen to him. I do not mean to tell you that magic alone can attain anything for you. If you are a talentless person, you can't be a great musician just by wishing for it or working a spell. If you are an ugly woman, you can't expect to attract a handsome movie actor by magic alone. Magic requires working in harmony with nature. Bearing that in mind, I can assure you that I have stumbled onto something. Magic works. I would do it whether people attended the Church of Satan and did it with me or not. Anton decided it was time to perform the world's first public satanic baptism. People would be forced to see that Satanism is not drinking the blood of babies and sacrificing small animals. rituals, LaVey declared, rather than cleanse the child of original sin, as in the Christian baptism imposing unwarranted guilt, we will glorify her natural instincts and intensify her lust for life. Who better to be baptized in such a public ceremony than LaVey's own 3-year-old daughter, Zena? With soft blonde hair and engaging smile, she captivated reporters with the image of such an angelic child, being dedicated to the devil. If real Satanism were allowed the kind of television time that Christianity has now, the kind of drawing out and patience that interviewers give sports figures now, or the kind of coverage that a baseball game gets, Christianity would be eliminated in a few short months. If people were allowed to see the complete, unbiased truth, even for 60 minutes, it would be too dangerous. There would be no comparison. The date was set for May 23rd, and photographers started showing up at 6 a.m., even though the baptism wouldn't begin for another 15 hours. One of the church members, survivalist Kurt Saxon, designed and made a special amulet for Zena just for the occasion. It was a colorful Baphomet with an ice cream cone, lollipop, and other things a little girl would like included in the circle. Her mother dressed her in a bright red hooded robe and sat her on the edge of the altar while photographers from New York to Rome snapped away. Anton recited an impressive invocation, later adapted for inclusion in the satanic rituals. In the name of Satan, Lucifer, welcome a new mistress, Zena, creature of ecstatic magic light. Welcome to our company. The path of darkness welcomes thee. Be not afraid. Above you, Satan heaves his bulk into the startled sky and makes a canopy of great black wings. Small sorceress, most natural and true magician, your tiny hands have power to pull heaven down, and from it build monuments to your own sweet indulgence. Your power makes your master of the world frightened, cowering, and guilt-ridden men. And so, in the name of Satan, we set your feet upon the left-hand path. Zena, we baptize you with earth and air, with brine and burning flame. And so we dedicate your life to love, to passion, to indulgence, and to Satan in the way of darkness. Hail, Zena. Hail, Satan. The entire ceremony was designed to delight the child, welcoming her into a world of indulgence, with sights and smells that were pleasurable to her. Unlike the Christian method of dunking already frightened children in water to baptize them, Zena sat cheerfully, chewing gum throughout the ritual, basking in the attention she was receiving from admirers and the press. While many Christian organizations and other concerned citizens were outraged at the spectacle, there was little they could do. Today, LaVey would probably have been charged with satanic child abuse. There were no such legal avenues for religious hysterics in 1967. In December of that year, Anton was approached by Mrs. Edward Olson, who wanted the high priest to perform a funeral for her recently deceased husband. a naval officer killed in a traffic accident near San Francisco's Treasure Island Station. Both she and Edward Olson had become members of the Church of Satan, despite his Baptist-oriented upbringing and his earlier membership in Youth for Christ. When he had entered the Navy, seen more of the world, and married a sexy brunette, he realized Satanism was a more realistic way of life. He believed in this church, said Miss Olson, and it is in this church that he would have wanted his funeral. Though the Navy officials were a bit nonplussed, they agreed to Pat Olson's request without much discussion, considering it their duty to comply with Mr. Olson's last request with dignity. There was a chrome-helmeted honor guard in attendance at the ceremony, standing rigidly at attention alongside the black-robed witches and warlocks wearing their Baphomet medallions. The sailors held an American flag over the coffin, while LaVey recited a eulogy, emphasizing Edward's commitment to life and choosing to walk the devil's path. To end the funeral, the Navy Guard fired 3 volleys from their rifles, and a Navy musician played taps after the mourners shouted, "Hail Satan! Hail Edward!" Even though the Archbishop of San Francisco was upset by the whole affair, immediately sending an outraged letter to President Johnson, most San Franciscans, including the Navy officials, felt Olson should receive the same consideration as any other Navy man. The response from the White House was actually quite fortuitous for the widow and her son. Olson, a machinist repairman 3rd class, was erroneously referred to by White House aides as Chief Petty Officer. Mrs. Olson was able to use those letters to file a claim for a posthumous promotion for her husband and receive higher survivor's benefits. LaVey credits demonic intervention for Mrs. Olson's good fortune. Because of the sharp increase of declared Satanists in the military, Satanism was soon outlined in the chaplain's handbook for the armed services as a recognized religion, with the description updated each year by the Church of Satan. The rituals continued at the Black House. Besides the Friday night ceremonies every week, Anton was conducting witches' workshops and various seminars as well, which attracted personalities from up and down the California coast. Madness rituals, fertility rites, destruction rituals, shibboleth rituals, and psychodramas in the form of black masses were devised for the public to participate in and be entertained by every Friday night. Where were they? All these people who claimed to be doing the same thing or thinking the same thing before I came along. All the ones who were going to write the Satanic Bible but never had the time to actually sit down and write it. I looked. I couldn't find anyone. Who started the Church of Satan? Not Church of Lucifer, or Temple of Abaddon, or Order of Thelema, of Brotherhood of Beelzebub. It wasn't in vogue to call yourself a Satanist until we came along. By the time the Satanic Bible was released in 1969, membership in the Church of Satan had already grown to well over 10,000 worldwide. It was originally published as a paperback, with a later edition in hardback, and has never been out of print, something a phenomenon in today's short-lived paperback market. When Rosemary's Baby was about to be released in 1968, publicists took advantage of the high priest's high visibility by passing out small black buttons which read, "Pray for Anton LaVey." Anton remembers the audience's reaction to the ending of the film, when it clearly showed the Satanists had no intention of hurting the child, as everyone expected, but glorified it as the son of Satan. People got very angry, stomping their feet and showing disapproval. Sometimes the reality of Satanism is a lot more terrifying to people than their safe fantasies of what it's supposed to be. For the first time, they've been confronted with a devil that talks back.